Demographic shifts caused by disease, scientific innovation, and conflict. Demographic shifts in the 20th and early 21st century were influenced by diseases, scientific innovation, and conflict. Some major powers affecting demographic shifts include diseases associated with poverty, emergent epidemic diseases, and higher instances of certain diseases resulting from changing lifestyles. Diseases associated with poverty. Malaria. Malaria is estimated to cause up to 500 million clinical cases and over 1 million deaths each year. More than an estimated 600,000 cases of malaria occurred in the U.S. in 1914. Malaria is returning to areas from which it had been eliminated and spreading into new areas, such as Central Asia and Eastern Europe. 1 million Union Army casualties in the U.S. Civil War are attributed to malaria, and in the Pacific theater of World War II, casualties from the disease exceeded those from combat. 90% of malaria deaths occur in sub-Saharan Africa. Malnutrition, stress, overwork, and inadequate, inaccessible, or non-existent healthcare can hinder recovery and intensify the disease. Several factors affect the disease. Population and demographic changes have resulted in more people moving into densely populated areas, thereby increasing transmission. Migration, climatic change, and the creation of new habitats have all resulted in people who have no natural immunity to the disease being exposed. This results in much higher rates of disease and death. Tuberculosis. 80% of the total people infected with tuberculosis occurred in just 22 high-burden countries located primarily in South and East Asia and sub-Saharan Africa. While China and India between them account for some 40% of worldwide cases, the highest case rates are believed to be in Zimbabwe, South Africa, Kenya, and Cambodia. This high incidence of disease dropped steadily as incomes increased and sanitation improved, and after 1950 decreased more rapidly to today's low levels, due most likely to the introduction of anti-tuberculosis chemotherapy. An estimated 40% of the population is infected with tuberculosis. Studies in India, Indonesia, and Thailand have demonstrated the cost-effectiveness of different strategies for TB treatment. Cholera. Cholera is caused by poor sanitation and likely has its origins in the Indian subcontinent. The disease first spread by trade routes, land and sea, to Russia in 1817, then to Western Europe, and from Europe to North America. 7 cholera pandemics have occurred in the past 200 years, with the 7th originating in Indonesia in 1961. Cholera became one of the most widespread and deadly diseases of the 19th century, killing an estimated tens of millions of people. The Russian-born bacteriologist Waldemar Haffkine developed the first cholera vaccine around 1900. People traveling in ships would hang a yellow quarantine flag if one or more of the crew members suffered from cholera. Passengers from boats with a yellow flag would not be allowed to disembark at any harbor for an extended period, typically 30 to 40 days. Emergent epidemic diseases. 1918 flu pandemic, Spanish influenza. During the years of 1918 to 1919, an influenza pandemic killed more people than the Great War. The influenza killed an estimation of 20 to 40 million people worldwide. More people died of influenza in a single year than in 4 years of the bubonic plague from 1347 to 1351. While lasting 2 years, a fifth of the world's population became infected, mostly targeting people ranging from the ages of 20 to 40. Because it affected a relatively young age group, this largely affected the war, as an estimated 43,000 servicemen mobilized for World War I died due to the pandemic. The effect of the influenza was extremely devastating, as it depressed the average lifespan of the U.S. by 10 years. The disease spread along the paths of trade routes and shipping lines, and it was largely aided by the war, as many men and armies were moved to various locations to keep up. The responses of the public health officials reflected the new allegiance to science and the wartime society. The influenza pandemic of 1918 to 1919 was also known as the Spanish flu, or la gripe, and it was devastating. Treatment through the form of distributed gauze masks and limitations of people helped contribute to the restriction of the disease, but it was still aided by the lack of healthcare workers and medical supplies. Ebola virus. Another emergent epidemic disease is Ebola, one of the most fatal viruses that infects primates. It can also be spread to humans and was first known to emerge in Sudan and Zaire, modernly known as the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The virus has an incredibly high mortality rate, ranging from 50% to 90%. The disease spread through close contact as a result of unsafe and unsanitary hospital practices, which includes the use of contaminated needles. Although the main source of Ebola is not known, it is currently thought to come from bats. The survival of the virus is dependent upon a host organism. Outbreaks have been known to occur in Sudan, Congo, the United States, and the Philippines. The outbreaks in the Philippines and the United States have been due to the importation of infected monkeys into the areas. There is no cure or drug therapy to treat the infection, and there are no vaccines to protect humans. As the human population grows and increased human contact with bats or Ebola-infected primates occurs, it is likely that additional natural outbreaks of Ebola will occur. HIV/AIDS. HIV and AIDS have caused demographic shifts throughout the world. Worldwide, there are about 33.4 million people living with HIV/AIDS. Since the first cases reported in 1981, more than 25 million people have died of AIDS. Rapid international travel that has developed recently has helped spread the epidemic since 1980. Although it has most severely affected southern and eastern Africa, it has basically spread worldwide. In the early 21st century, rates of AIDS have begun to increase in Russia and in parts of Asia, largely due to the new global contact, which has brought contagion. In the past decade, new global efforts have been accumulating to raise awareness and spread current and updated information, as well as treatment. Although this is promising, most people living with HIV or at risk for HIV do not have the proper access to prevention, care, and treatment. This is also burdened by a lack of a cure. Diseases resulting from changing lifestyles. Diabetes. It is no secret that obesity is rampant in the United States and is affecting things other than the numbers on our scales. It is increasing the chances of getting a serious disease, as heart disease is one of the #1 causes of death in the United States, with cancer coming in second and Alzheimer's disease and diabetes trailing close after. Diabetes is a mixture of hereditary factors and environmental factors. If someone in your family has diabetes, you are at a higher risk of getting it. Overweight people have a higher chance of contracting it, as during the past few decades, type 2 diabetes has become more prevalent in your youth as childhood obesity has become a growing problem. Heart disease. Heart disease can be summed up as a problem that keeps oxygen and nutrients from getting to the heart. The main culprit of this is the buildup of plaque in the arteries. Although some factors can't be helped, like hereditary risk, most of the risk factors are things that can be controlled with exercise and healthy eating, like blood pressure, tobacco abuse, high-fat diet, emotional stress, and of course, obesity. The introduction of fast food into the world has definitely been a factor contributing to the high number of people with heart disease. It is simply more convenient to go pick up a greasy hamburger on the way to soccer practice than to slave over the stove to make a healthier meal at home. The increased importance placed on women's success could be argued to contribute to the bigger need for fast food. Since the women are not at home making dinner that is healthier, they are at work and unable to work in a meal. Increased importance on work, in general, contributes to the high stress rate, which in turn stresses out the body. The invention of things like the TV, the internet, and even the microwave has led to obesity and unhealthy life choices. The TV obviously leads to hours vegetating on the sofa along with the internet. The microwave facilitates the fast food movement. Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is slowly on the rise. It is thought to affect 5 million people nationwide. 14% of people over 65 in the United States have some degree of Alzheimer's, and women have more of a chance to get it. Alzheimer's disease is the degeneration of the brain. The causes of it are not fully understood, but researchers think that some risk factors include high cholesterol, heart disease, head injuries, and diabetes. Some of the same risk factors are shared with heart disease. The trend outlined here is the unhealthy lifestyle of many people throughout the world. As time progresses, we have made life easier with the luxuries of the 21st century, but we are also damaging ourselves.